Melanie Bishop recently put on a solo exhibition at the Gallery of Caribbean Art in Spitestone. And as we walk through the exhibition, I want to get a sense of exactly who is Melanie Bishop.
Well, Melanie Bishop is 100% Bajan. I went to school here. I went to St. Winifred's and to Springer, and I then went and lived in Canada for half of my life, basically, and then just came back a few years ago and tried to get things rolling here again after I returned. While I was away, I did my training in art at Emily Carr College of Art in Vancouver, and there I majored in pottery. I was a painter when I went into school. I majored in pottery and clay work just because it's more technical, and also really dabbled in a lot of different mediums, as you can probably see. But I would say clay definitely takes up most of my time.
Okay. Yeah. Now, you've called the exhibition Earth Rhythm. Why Earth Rhythm?
Earth Rhythm was rhythm for sure was a way of tying the drums into the whole scenery. And because a lot of my work I like to live closely to the earth, and I do like to work with the earth. And so I thought it was an appropriate name to sort of weave the two mediums and the themes together.
Okay, well, let's start behind me. We've got this lovely piece of Realms, which is acrylic on canvas. And a lot of your work is underwater. The paintings does that speak to a love of scuba diving?
Love of scuba diving. My husband is a scuba diver,
okay,
and we do quite a lot of diving together. I'm very macro vision when I'm diving. I'm just fascinated by the world and the textures and the forms, and he spends more time sort of looking for big fish, and I'm bumping into sea corals, trying to figure them out. So for me, I'm really fascinated more so with the actual coral and for its artistic qualities. Then I haven't really got into the fish as much. I mean, a lot of artists do fish, and I found I haven't done fish work as much as I've really been interested in the form and texture of coral. So.
Now, you've done some beautiful work in terms of bringing the underwater world to life in clay. And I know these cannot be easy because my friends who sculpt and who are into clay tell me it's difficult to get the shapes and then to bake it in the kiln. So talk to me a little bit about how you got like these ones and this piece uplifted and certainly that beautiful piece there.
I tend to cross over a lot in my technique with clay. A lot of artists will either do one or the other, and I really I stretch my boundaries. I'll work with the wheel, and I work with different temperatures, and I work with different building techniques. And so I try to really expand. I do what I want, as opposed to letting the medium control me as much. I try to, if it needs to be hand built, then I build it by hand. If it needs to be carved, I'll carve it. If it needs, sometimes these tube sponge vases are done on a wheel, because the wheel was the instrument that lent best to creating that form, whereas that sponge would have been built by hand.
Ebb and flow,
and
that's the name
done
of
on
that
a coil.
piece. Okay. Are these pieces more difficult than if you just shape them by hand and bake them in the kiln?
They're definitely more technically challenging, for sure. The forms, a form like that, anything that defies gravity is more technically challenging with clay. So that's why working with the wheel gives you a very centered piece, whereas as soon as you defy gravity, then you're running into trouble.
Now we're into these earthenware. There's refuge and there's the anemone vases. These are very, very nice, especially the vessels of the deep. How long does it take you to do a piece, let's say like the refuge?
Oh. The thing with clay is it's a process where I will work on many pieces at once. So that while one piece is drying, I can only work it to, say, so many inches, and then I have to leave it, let that clay set up while I work on something else, and you really have to babysit it through the process. And then of course there's moving back my studio back to Barbados. All the recipes I had, my standby recipes from school in Vancouver, and when I was in my studio there, didn't work here because the clay here is of a totally different temperature and temperament. And so I had to really go back to the lab, and it's a very chemistry-based medium to work with, because you are actually working with oxides and carbonates, and you have to know what to add to the clay to make it react at a certain temperature. So.
You talked about moving your studio back to Barbados. Was it difficult? Because Vancouver is a totally different climate to Barbados, so there, while you may be working with a more temperate climate, Barbados is total heat.
My colors were so different. I never used blue at all in Vancouver because it's a cold color. And so my stuff was always very warm tones. And And I just went crazy with blue when I came back here. I can use blue here.
Now this is lovely, this school of
So-
fish, and you've called this one Spirit of Fellowship, and this is a beautiful piece, and this is what you talked about in terms of using blue.
Yeah, I bring a lot of symbolism into my work, and we could certainly talk about it on a much deeper level at another point, but I try to keep it that it's enjoyable and understandable by most people as well. But in terms of my spirituality and my belief system, I really do find that there will be symbolism represented when you read into it a little bit more in the pieces.
Now you had your exhibition, the official opening a couple of days ago. Response from the public. What was that like? Yeah.
Fantastic. It was really, really rewarding. It was just incredible. I was so pleased that the responses have been very positive, and I managed to bring forth a very positive, inspirational sort of example to people. And I'm a teacher as well, and I really like to believe that I can influence in a positive way people around me. So that was very important.
Now your installation pieces are very unique, and I really liked this. When I came to the opening, I saw it. I mean, I stood for a long time just watching it, because I'm telling you, I can see those waves rolling in, and then the whole beach and the conch shell and the sea fans. How long did it take you to put this together, and your thought process behind putting it together?
The thought process for it originated really from the beachcombing, which gave birth to the sea urchin actual bowls that I make. So the pieces were inspired by beachcombing on the East Coast, of course, and I really wanted to bring that experience, because every time I've ever done beachcombing on the East Coast, I come home with a bag full of rocks and inspirations, and then I come in and I actually go in my studio and then try to recreate that feeling. So I wanted the viewer to get a sense to bring them back to that place.
Okay.
Where they can appreciate that and see that, the shards are actually, you can actually
touch them.
touch.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in galleries, you're not allowed to touch. And so
yeah.
I wanted to create something that the viewer can actually pick up and handle, and get a feeling for it. Clay to me is a very tactile medium. It needs to be touched. And I try to work on my vessels that I make, even though they're functional. I finish the piece right underneath, completely around, so it's an object in itself, and so really just trying to bring that feeling across. I work a lot with, I basically, with my glazes, I work a lot with textures, so I try to get my effect in textures, not just colors when I'm glazing, so that's fairly important to me. This is the sea egg in Barbados, or the sea urchin, and of course this was inspired by beachcombing, and I finished the piece right over, so hard to know which way to display it sometimes, but being that my background is in pottery, I like to always refer back to something functional, even though it might be a sculptural piece.
Divine Radiance, which is acrylic on canvas, and you said that a lot of this was inspired by your pregnancy because you've just had a baby.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
So I really felt isolated actually in my pregnancy, and I found that the environment I was in was very personal and very spiritual, a very special space within me and around me. And so I actually left the underwater work while I was pregnant because I couldn't dive anymore.
Okay.
And I like to work with my environment very immediate to what I'm doing. So I put away the underwater for a while and just went into doing my pregnancy pieces. The belly cast is of me when I was 8 months, and I have a 9-month one at home as well.
Wow.
But that is 8 months, made out of plaster, cast directly off of me, and it now actually resides in the birthing center, the family birthing center where I had my child. And my child was born underwater.
Okay.
As a water birth.
That's an interesting experience.
So this piece, Labor of Love, definitely represents the water birth experience.
Why the turtle on the belly cast?
Sort of the idea of the turtle swimming down represents that you start out underwater, like when you are in the stomach, you're underwater, and it brings the sort of Caribbean element into it as well.
Now, one of the other things I want to look at certainly is your Udu pots, and I looked at them from the night of the opening, and I was completely fascinated by them. So let's start out here with the spirit drums, and you've got them in a circle with the smooth stones around them. So let's talk about that.
Okay, this is a series that I work on as an ongoing basis. Every time I make a drum, the form evolves. Like I don't have really any plan in mind when I start working with a drum, and then as the form is evolving, I then work with that. So the neck is usually designed as a result of the belly that starts. They're all built in the very traditional way of the Igbo people who live in the rainforest of West Africa, a tribal people that I was very interested in studying when I was in Vancouver, and through my research became very interested in how they work, and in a certain sort of humble manner, really. The drum itself has a very subtle sound and has almost like a watery sort of feeling when you're playing it. The hole in the side was actually an accident. They were usually actually water vessels that women carried on their heads, and one broke, and they got this hole and decided that it made a great sound. So that's how it evolved. When I make the drums, it's a very long process to do it traditionally.
Okay.
And it's certainly a lot more difficult. I hand build everything, and I polish it with a stone to bring the shine up, so it's not glazed at all.
Okay.
And they're fired in a pit firing method, which is similar to what they would do for the surface effect. So the actual coloration of the clay is coming from the pit firing carbon trapping.
Rather than from any kind of glazing?
No glazing.
Okay.
No glazing, yeah.
Now, this I thought was particularly interesting because on the night of the opening you played the drums a little bit. Tell me about this. Is this the kind of place where they would...
I wanted to create, just being in a gallery environment again, as I did with the beach, I wanted to create something that was real, the kind of environment that the drum would be experienced in. Something intimate, an intimate space within the gallery where you could have some privacy because the drum has a very subtle sound. And I was hoping to invite people to come and sit on the cushion and actually play the drum for themselves so they could experience it in their own way. You can tap, you can use rings to get other effects as well while you're drumming. But the main thing is that it's not a drum with a skin. You're actually pulling your hand off rather than hitting it, and you're moving the air between the two holes. So by definition, it's called an aerophone, not a drum. And it's pushing the air rather than hitting a membrane.
This piece, this earthenware piece, Investment, I particularly like this because I can see the yin and the yang in it. And you said that this is one of the pieces for which you make your political statements.
Yes, yeah, I tried to put at least one political statement. But the soil has, of course, a symbolism, and the sand. Every element in it is symbolic. Speaking of development, the name of the piece is Investment. I'm very concerned about our future, the future of our children, what we're leaving for them, and how we're going about really designing our future. Environmental awareness comes back into play there as well for me. I have it's sort of a poem that is not written by me, but I've lived my life. I find it very powerful, actually, so I was going to just read it for you, and I find it goes well with this piece. And it says, "Only after the last tree has been cut down, only after the last fish has been caught, only after the last river has been poisoned, only then will you find that money cannot be eaten."
You are right. That is very, very powerful. Melanie, I want to thank you for taking this time out to talk to me. I really, really enjoyed this exhibition from opening night and coming back to it. And it is an exhibition that takes on a different feel at different times of the day. When I was here the night, it felt different to how it feels in the day, but it is still a wonderful exhibition. When next can we look forward to another exhibition of this kind from Melanie Bishop?
Oh, this has certainly inspired me. So I'll have some materials flying in my studio soon enough after I take a break.
Okay.
But it's definitely, I think I would like to rewind and come again with a different show next time.
Now, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, Alberta Whittle tells us about her exhibition, Fiat Lux.